Pizza time.
You're late. I'm not paying for those.
Well, here we are. The final chapter. Judging from the title, you would think that this will be a much more negative video compared to the ones before. And frankly, you'd absolutely be right. I know that I'm going to be jumping the shark and playing with fire this time round. I know that people will hate me. I know that I will be making enemies from both sides. I know that by the time I'll be done, I will have lost all credibility I ever had as a little guy talking about his favourite fictional pink hedgehog on the internet. I know that I will be a lot more aggressive with my points going forward, as if I haven't been already. Maybe a bit emotional, perhaps. Because of this, I highly advise that you watch the entire video before leaving a comment. Not that anyone even leaves comments on here anyway, because everything I'm about to say, from Amy's current state in the franchise, to why I am the way I am, and my main motivation for starting this whole thing, will be explained in this video. This is also the decade I first got into the fandom, so this is definitely going to be a whole lot more personal and direct. In other words, the gloves are off, and will remain off from here on out. This is pretty much the only warning I'll give, because afterwards, there's no turning back. But as much as I want to dip my toes into the dark, murky waters in the Sonic fandom, I can only cross that bridge when I actually get there, and I can't do that without explaining why first. So we continue where we left off with her portrayal in Sonic Colors, the DS version of Sonic Colors. Her role here is extremely minor, in which Sonic helps Amy in one mission. Afterwards, she daydreams about marrying Sonic once again, before Sonic himself runs off again. Her portrayal is pretty harmless here, however at this point I'll admit that it really feels a little bare bones by late 2000s Amy standards. What's not bare bones however is her portrayal in Sonic Free Riders, where the Amy we are greeted with is extremely aggressive, rude, hostile, short-tempered, and just downright cruel towards everyone, including her own team and especially towards Sonic himself. You might be thinking, well, Amy being this aggressive doesn't seem that out of the ordinary for her. And yes, that might be true with her previous two Riders portrayals, but all her past appearances, including her previous Rider portrayals, still had far more positive traits to counterbalance her negative traits. And her Free Riders portrayal has absolutely none of that, resulting in a rather deplorable portrayal of Amy that is just grating to watch. You might also notice that Amy sounds a little bit different here. That's because the Sonic series has once again gotten another recast as a result of the 4Kids voice actor contracts expiring. Amy's new voice actress is Cindy Robinson, who also happens to be the longest running actress for Amy, as she is still voicing the character to this very day. To say that she had a rough start to her Amy voice acting career would be an understatement. The Minnie Mouse comparisons really plagued Cindy's reputation during her first few years, and have already been beaten to death by the fandom many times. Well, she is easily my least favourite of the three Amy VAs. I actually don't think her Minnie Mouse voice was entirely bad. I think the main problem with Cindy's take on Amy, which is even still a problem today, is that the writing and voice direction are all simply abysmal. I don't think Cindy has ever been given material that has done her justice. It's pretty crazy to look back at how different Cindy's Amy sounded back in the early 2010s compared to now. In Free Rider's case, Amy sounds incredibly whiny, which certainly did not help the game's writing, and is not a great way to kickstart her Amy voice acting career, especially compared to Amy's previous two actresses and how well they started. Amy is present in Sonic's birthday party in Generations, where she tries to hug him but is pushed back by him. She gets captured by the Time Eater, which Sonic needs to save her. After she's been saved, Amy serves mainly as a Sonic cheerleader, barely active in a story if at all. This is a common criticism I would hear of Generations' story from many people in the Sonic fandom, is that Generations doesn't really have that much of a story, and all the side characters have been regulated to being Sonic's cheerleaders in the final boss. I think it was a missed opportunity for Amy to talk to the other characters or meet her classic self, because she barely interacts with anybody here. Heck, maybe even have her face off against Metal Sonic again in a rematch of a lifetime. There's also this slapstick scene of Amy pushing Knuckles into a tree, which I'll admit is pretty funny, but it mainly just makes me wonder if Amy even cared for Knuckles, because aside from the one cutscene in SA2, Amy has never directly interacted with Knuckles in the games as far as I'm aware. While her portrayal in Generations is, again, mostly harmless, it still feels incredibly shallow and possibly even more one-note than her Free Riders portrayal, considering how much more the writers could have and should have done with her, especially since this is an anniversary game celebrating 20 years of Sonic. Amy's portrayal in Sonic Lost World doesn't serve much better, as once again she serves as an exposition dump for Sonic and Tails and is inactive for the rest of the game. You could argue that her role here is identical to her role in Unleashed, as Amy's role in the franchise has already been kinda reduced drastically after 2006 due to her not being a playable character, but unlike in that game where she was uplifting and positive in a wake of destruction, as we saw with her scenes with Professor Pickle, Amy in this game appears to have completely given up and have lost hope. This is backed up by the scene with Amy speaking to Sonic on Tails' iPad, where she has this extremely awkward and out of place line that doesn't even sound like something Amy would say herself. The voice delivery here is just so forced and unnatural.
It's too late for us, Sonic! Save the world and kick some butt for all of us!
So things aren't really looking all too good for our beloved Pink Hedgehog. We have one deplorable portrayal of her, and everything else so far has been underwhelming. But thankfully, the Sonic Boom sub-series is on its way, which means that Amy's character has the chance to be rejuvenated. Did the series succeed in that goal? Well, let's find out. I'll be counting the games and the cartoon as one entity for simplicity's sake. This is the first time the series has gotten a new TV show since Sonic X back in 2003. Come to think of it, it seems like every new TV show in the series has brought in new fans into the franchise. The Boom TV show is completely self-contained and isn't as story-driven as Sonic X was, so I won't go too much into detail over Amy's Boom TV appearance. However, I'll instead highlight some of her key moments on the show. Even back then, I always thought something felt off about her Boom portrayal, but I was never able to articulate the reason why that was the case. It wasn't until recently when I finally watched the show fully, where I finally realised why I never liked Boom Amy at all in the first place. Starting off with her new redesign, I've never been a fan of it. One of the reasons why I love Amy's modern outfit so much was how recognisable it was and how it improved upon her classic design. It took all the good elements of her classic design and just made it better, evolving it from the stereotypical pink Sonic in a dress to something more recognisable and iconic. The decision to give Amy a more fashionable look with the headband, red and white dress and boots, and the gold ring bracelets, while also going for a more simple red, white and pink colour scheme, was honestly the perfect choice to differentiate Amy's model design from her classic one, while still reflecting her feminine and bold personality, something that even her classic outfit wasn't able to pull off. Boom Amy, on the other hand, doesn't hit the same check marks. Giving credit where it's due, her Boom design does retain some features from her modern. Her headband, the quills worked down, the bracelets, even the red colour scheme still remains intact, albeit not as prominent here, but that's where all the positives end. The main problem with the Boom design is really the implication I get from it. Now, I know this is going to make me sound so incredibly cynical and picky, since discourse around female character designs in general has always been a touchy subject ever since, well, ever, but her Boom design come across more as the character design is downplaying her femininity and making her look more like a tomboy, implying that her old design wasn't cool enough to stand with the rest of the cast. Her silhouette has also been greatly affected by this change, which I firmly believe to be a core part of making a good character design. This makes it harder to recognize the character at first glance. Also, her mouth seems weird. Like, it looks more like a Muppet's mouth. I'm serious, just compare the muzzles of both Modern and Boom Amy's side by side, and it really looks like Boom Amy ate too many sour grapes or something. Another reason I dislike her Boom portrayal also correlates to what is arguably the biggest talking point surrounding Boom Amy in general, and that is her personality, or in case, the lack thereof. Notably her crush on Sonic, which has been heavily suppressed and hidden in this universe. This may not seem like a bad thing on paper, but it feels more in a similar vein of removing Sonic's love for running, and instead of running to his destination, he instead takes a bus or taxi there, or replacing chili dogs as Sonic's favourite food, apples, or taking away his attitude and making him silent like a certain familiar fan redesign out there. In the show, Sonic is shown to be a lot more comfortable around Amy, to the point where there were even moments where he did reciprocate her feelings and flirt with her a little bit. There were also a number of instances where the show itself would poke fun at the ship's fandom, and pretty much the Sonic fandom in general. This meta and self-aware humour is something that's a huge factor in the show, and even in a number of games after. However, I just don't find this sort of relationship as interesting as once before. Aside from Sonic appearing to be a lot more comfortable with her, Boom Amy doesn't really have a lot going on for her. If you've been looking hard enough, you might come across some people online that argue that Boom Amy doesn't really have that much of a distinctive personality of her own, and I have to agree, because 95% of the time, I struggle to remember who Amy's supposed to be in this universe. All I get from her is that she is a nice and caring girl that serves as the backbone of the group, and arguably has the most relatable reactions to the things happening around her, which again, like her crush being hidden, aren't bad traits to have at all, but are honestly really dull traits to have, especially for a female lead that's been in the series since the early 90s. And even her personality feels pretty inconsistent for the most part. It seems like her personality is defined to be whatever the episodes want her to be. I'm not going to pretend that Sonic X was flawless in that department either, as it certainly wasn't the most consistent thing in the world, but I still feel like Amy in that show was a lot more refined character there. I can immediately point out Amy's defining traits and characteristics in Sonic X compared to Amy's portrayal in Boom, where she honestly feels like a blank canvas for a generic female lead in a kids action-adventure show. Amy is also shown to be a lot more capable and competent in combat compared to the guys and her game counterpart, as seen in the games in the show where she lands on her feet while the others land on their faces. There's this one episode where Amy makes this weird feminist joke about how girls can do the same thing as boys can. I've always found this line extremely cringy and never sat right with me, because the thing with game canon mainline Amy is that she is, by design, a Japanese girl. She is modeled to be that of the Genki girl trope, one that's upbeat, hyperactive, and always on the move. This is something that even her creator attributed to, as her girly feminine traits and hobbies and interests are what her creator admired in women at the time. Her Boom portrayal was pretty much a 180 from that. One could say if you squint hard enough, her crush and her ball of energy is still there, but really when you compare how hidden and suppressed those traits are here, compared to how she was in the games pre-2013, it's literally in small doses now as opposed to being what defines her. This also explains Boom Amy's approach to combat, because Amy in the past was never designed to be a girl boss character to begin with. She's never portrayed to be as physically capable as male heroes are. Sure, something like Sonic X is going to get brought up most of the time to refute this, since she has her moments on the show. But even still, her moments were mostly played out as slapstick comic relief more than anything. There is a clear difference between the two. It should be worth noting that Amy has always been considered to be part of the main four prior to Sonic Boom, case in point with games such as Sonic Advance and Sonic Riders. However, she was more akin to being the honourable fourth member but not really being part of the team, almost always the one to invite herself in. Ever since Sonic Lost World, however, she is now officially part of the main Sonic trio with Tails and Knuckles, and alongside Styx in the Boom franchise. But here, it really feels more like the writers are trying so desperately hard for Amy to be like one of the boys, instead of letting her shine through with her own unique personality in a way that feels natural. It gives me the impression that the writers are just flat out embarrassed by Amy's old personality, and they do everything they could to avoid writing her as such. There's also another episode where Amy fangirls over this dude named, I kid you not, Justin Bieber. It may seem like a funny role reversal to some people, but to me it always feels like this was the writers poking fun at the Sonic fangirl criticism that plagued a lot of her appearances in the 2000s. So overall, Boom Amy feels way too much like an overcorrection from her old self. So much of Amy's go-getter and energetic personality has been lost in translation, and they turned what was a unique, fun dynamic into something that's bland and uninspired. Her crush being a secret is a trait that I've seen 1,000 times before in other games and media. Take away all the shippy moments and the meta humor, and what's left is a generic female lead hidden under Amy's skin. You could replace her with practically any other female character, and absolutely nothing in the Boom universe would change. In reality, Boom Amy was designed for people that never liked Amy's original characterization in the first place. Much like how the real Amy was designed to be fundamentally Japanese, Boom Amy was designed to be quite literally the personification of what the Western audience admires in a female character, what they consider a strong or good female character to be. The Sonic Boom sub-franchise died in 2017 along with the show, and considering the impact it had in the main franchise, I think that's for the best and it should stay forgotten. You might be thinking, well, this doesn't seem fair. This is supposed to be a different version of Amy, as after all, the Boom series was always marketed as a spin-off to the main series. And normally you would be right. However, this was not the case at all, because the Boom series was literally the only thing going on during that time period where there were no games coming out, meaning that Boom Amy really was the mainline Amy during this 3-year gap. And the truth of the matter is, it may as well have been the main Amy in the series ever since. Which leads into her portrayal in Sonic Forces. Once again, she is just there, hiding behind a computer screen, serving as an exposition dump to the viewers and the heroes. She shows up in the final battle, but her role in this game is so incredibly minor that she may as well not show up at all and nothing would change. Shoving all these characters in a single frame together for the sake of fan service and getting them something to do isn't doing them justice. That's just doing the absolute bare minimum of reminding the audience that these characters still exist, when it really doesn't make any difference. Amy doesn't even have a heartfelt reaction when Sonic died, and certainly wasn't joyful at all when Sonic supposedly came back from the dead either. That's just how much of a nothing character she is in this game. Just a cardboard cutout throwing out the most generic NPC cookie cutter dialogue. After 20 years of being neglected, Amy's classic counterpart makes a surprising comeback in the Sonic Mania Adventures Christmas special. This is a pretty nice return to form because of how reminiscent it was to her characterization pre-2010, as seen with her interactions with Metal Sonic. This isn't just me talking, by the way. This was also something the writer of the short, Tyson Hesse, also attributed this to when being interviewed for his work on the show, stating how important Amy's level of empathy is to affect the world around her. If anything, Amy's inclusion in Mania Adventures feels like a massive apology from Sega and the Mania devs for Amy's absence in the game and its DLC. And considering how they handled her absence as well as the overall discourse surrounding her at the time, that apology felt massively overdue by then. Team Sonic Racing! Is exactly how I describe Amy's portrayal in this game. Literally just there to say a few lines, and every single interaction she has there is just as bland as ever. She has a line about Omochao being the master of exposition, or whatever that line's supposed to mean, but overall so painfully average, painfully mundane, and absolutely dull all around with nothing worthy to mention. And with that, we've reached the end of the 2010s. Wow, that's it, huh? The 2010s were a massive downgrade for Amy in virtually every single way. She no longer interacts with the main cast in a meaningful way like she used to, which is backed up by how she also stopped becoming a playable character in these games too, and there were less of them coming out. Her role during the 2010s mainly consists of either standing in the background acting as a Sonic cheerleader, or serving as an exposition dump for the player, and as a result, her character and personality has been drastically reduced to a pulp. She really is just a nothing girl character in this decade, and the dialogue is absolutely abysmal. Every single line she says in these games sounds so wooden and awkward, and nothing like the upbeat go-getter self she was in the late 90s and the 2000s. In a normal review, this would be the end of this video, but as you can tell by the length, I'm not exactly done with her just yet. The review side of this video may be done and out, but as we all know, we're halfway through the 2020s, so it's now time for me to discuss the 2020s so far, and current issues surrounding Amy Rose. Sonic Frontiers was the game that I anxiously waited for during that drought period since Sonic Forces. It was hyped up to be this return to form in some cases, that it would return the characters and lore back to their original state and away from the disappointment in the 2010s. What I got wasn't that at all. Pushing the quality of the actual game aside, Amy's characterization and interactions with the other characters are once again as bland and boring as ever. The voice acting and presentation are all dry and lifeless. Because of this, her moments with Sonic do absolutely nothing for me, and she spends most of this game sidelined as well. I don't care for the story at all, nor am I inclined to be invested in the characters, because if the story doesn't care what happens to them, then why should I? She has this line in the end where she wants to share her love to the world, which feels more like a half-hearted attempt to recapture Amy's glory days. But even the line itself is so vague, and with the aforementioned lifeless voice acting and no personality to write about, it falls completely flat on its face. Every time I hear this line, I immediately think of the Mr. Burns ghost from The Simpsons.
I bring you love.
Is that the love between a man and a woman, or the love of a man for a fine Cuban cigar?
I bring you love.
It's bringing love! Don't let it get away!
Break its legs!
Sonic Prime wasn't much better. In fact, I think it's a lot worse. Given that it had a completely new set of voice actors and was hyped up to be connected to the games in some way, I'll admit that I initially had a sense of false hope for the show, as I thought this would be the end of the so-called meta era and would start a new, hopefully more positive direction in the series. But what I got was a safe, kiddie, corporate mess. Seeing and hearing that version of Amy for the first time actually broke me quite a bit. The real Amy wasn't even present for most of the show, and considering her role in the show, she may as well not show up either. And I also hate the design changes on her sleeves and dress, as it feels way too much like censorship and change just for the sake of change. All of this is in the fault of one man in particular, and that man is Ian Flynn. Ian is the head writer for Frontiers, the IDW comics, and pretty much every other game after, as well as the consultant for Sonic Prime, and he is easily my least favourite writer the series has ever gotten. Considering how much I hated Pontac and Graff's writing, that's saying a whole fucking lot. How could I hate someone that has at least some knowledge and some background working in the Sonic series over two individuals that have admitted to have only read a Wikipedia article on Sonic? And that does not mean I want Pontac and Graff back, by the way, or that I think they were actually good. Not at all. But at least Pontac and Graff were honest about not giving a shit. When they said they weren't familiar with the adventure stories, it was why they never wanted to attempt an adventure style story, simply for the fear that they wouldn't even live up to those expectations. At least they never went out of their way to rewrite history to fit their own selfish needs. At least they never tried to demolish and destroy everything I loved about Amy Rose. At least, not on purpose. Because in case you've been keeping tabs within the Twitter portion of the Sonic community, Ian has his way of writing Amy where he really loves to remind the audience that she's no longer this damsel in distress from the 90s, nor is she some annoying little girl that fangirls over boys and shopping, that people hate. Now she's this strong, independent woman that shows no emotion, any sign of weakness or vulnerability, and could totally do the same things boys can. This is all backed up by Ian's own words and thoughts on what he, and the rest of the Sonic fanbase in that matter, deems as the old Amy. In a couple of his Bumblecast interviews, he describes Amy's relationship with Sonic as this will they, won't they crush, which really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It gives me the impression that he only views Amy on a very shallow surface level. This may not seem as bad as I make it out to be, but he then discusses the actual meaning behind Amy's share her love to the world line, as described earlier, where he wanted Amy to move on from Sonic and to move on away from her crush.
The whole goal with Amy's story in Frontiers was to bring it to some kind of end, because this whole will they, won't they, cat and mouse that we're never going to actually get an answer on felt antagonistic, not necessarily intentionally, but this constantly dangling carrot without any real commitment one way or the other. It's like, let's just have them move on in some way, do the characters a service so that there's more to them than just the, will they have kisses one day? Do something. And so part of it was Amy's resolve to share her love with the world, to not have her entire existence revolve around someone who's always running away from her. She has so much love to give. She has so much potential. Instead of focusing it on one person, give it to the world and see what a force she can be for good and change and all that. And Sonic, for his part, realizes that, she's not chasing anymore. We're just cool. We're friends now. And the lines in the script are kind of testing those waters to see if that's what the team would accept, if that's where we could take things. And the fact that they were not present in the final, actual game told me, okay, well, no, they didn't want to put too fine a point on it. It's not in the published game, therefore it's not canon, and we can explore it again later.
Which is an idea so pitiful and so laughably bad to the point where Sonic Team would actually shut down his idea from ever happening. The worst offender, however, is Ian's interview on the creation of Tangle the Lemur, one of his OCs with the IDW comics. When asked about his thoughts on the current female character roster, he described Amy as being all over the place. The only girl he ever talked about positively was Blaze, describing her as the singular butt-kicking female. So then, what was Ian's solution to these problems? Creating another butt-kicking girl, which, come to think of it, Tangle also shares similar Amy-like traits as well. So what Ian basically did was create a better version of Amy, just without all the girly feminine shit that he apparently hates so much. All in a while revamping Amy to be yet another tomboy girl boss anyway. It's crazy how he has all these resources available to write these characters the way they are supposed to be characterized and written, but chooses not to and instead steals traits and characteristics from existing characters to use for his original characters do not steal, and having them steal the spotlight from the characters he's willingly stealing from, that desperately needs that spotlight more. In Amy's case, Ian's best course of action is to literally remove her crush and femininity altogether, which did absolutely nothing to help Amy, because that's what he and the Western audience in general thinks makes a good female character these days. Everything I've said and shown is enough to draw the conclusion that Ian isn't making these changes to improve the character in any way, but simply because he hates the old Amy and wants to change her to be what he prefers her to be. Everything from her appearance down to her personality that's been built upon for the past 2 decades, he's been trying to change and fix, even when she didn't even really need to be fixed in the first place. He sees femininity as a sign of weakness and girly girls in general to be useless, much like how the vast majority of Western Sonic fans look down on female characters that are traditionally feminine and not in line with the strong girl boss powerhouse quota, which for sure is a disgusting amount in this fandom. That's also why he's obsessed with bringing up references and making callbacks to previous games, which is something he loves to do, because Ian reckons that, hey, if I can't write these characters to save my life, I might as well bring up some stuff they did in the past, or some obscure trivia to gaslight people into believing that these are indeed these same characters we loved since the 90s. That Amy always had mystical powers, and always had tarot cards as her choice of weapon instead of the iconic large toy hammer that she's been carrying the past 3 decades now. That Flicky in Sonic Prime, that was really Ian's attempt to call back to her Sonic Adventure days, so that people can get attached to this nothing burger version of Amy because, oh, isn't she such a nice girl? Because that's what Amy really was back then, according to Ian. Just a girl that says nice things just because she's nice. The fact that she could just be there and say something that is ever so slightly reminiscent of adventure characterization, yet still not having any defining traits or an actual personality herself, is for some reason enough for people to be content with the belief that this is still the same Amy they loved since 1993, but she's now all grown up. Gone are the days where Amy would harass Sonic, even if she wasn't actually harassing Sonic, but it doesn't matter, because anything is better than those couple games where she was mischaracterized in their eyes. Oh, and I absolutely hate how her niche tarot card hobby has completely changed and replaced her Pico Pico hammer, both gameplay and story wise. You know, one of the 2 things that people immediately think of when they think of Amy, what they associate Amy with. I always thought it was so cool and badass that a sweet little girl like Amy would wield a giant massive tool of destruction. It was not only a weapon for self-defense, it also made some pretty funny slapstick here and there. The tarot cards are all just lame in comparison. Regardless of what you think, her hammer is quite literally synonymous and an iconic part of her character. You can't just throw it in the bin. And this is where every single one of Ian's defenders would come out of the woodwork to say, well, actually, Amy's tarot card hobby was always a thing since the beginning. And yes, you would absolutely be right, but it really was just that. It was just a thing she had. It was such an obscure part of her character that the only tangible reason for it being there in the first place was because tarot cards used to be a common hobby among Japanese girls her age at the time. It was never a huge part of her character, and even in the rare couple games where it was brought up, it was at least a cute callback. But ever since recently, with the IDW comics and Frontiers, they've been shoehorning and shoving her obscure tarot card hobby from 1993 down our throats so much to where it has pretty much become her entire personality. Virtually every single Amy related thing nowadays has to bring up her tarot cards, and I'm so fucking over it. I just roll my eyes every time I see those stupid cards show up in these VTuber shorts or in the Origin Plus animations or any of those endless runner mobile games. Imagine if Knuckles in the next game starts throwing out grapes to enemies, or Tails builds a machine that shoots out mint candy because Ian remembered that those were the things they liked. Because that's basically what this is. People complained about how Amy was able to turn invisible in Sonic 06 because she wasn't able to do that before. It was out of character for her then, and it's out of character for her now. So it does nothing but grind my gears when I, and many other people disappointed with Amy's current direction, gets jumped by Flynn's White Knights with as many strawman arguments as they could think of. Because I have such a huge bone to pick with this fandom and how they've treated her. I'm just so sick and tired of this trend of turning traditionally feminine characters into massive girl bosses. It feels way more like the writers indirectly implying that, yeah, her character was so annoying and clingy. This is how you write a good female character. And that's something that people who constantly go on about how Amy's all mature and grown up now still fail to understand, is that the character in question has to actually grow. Plumping her behind a computer screen and having her do fuck all isn't character development. Neither is her saying that she doesn't need to be rescued anymore when there's absolutely nothing she needs to be rescued from. And growing up doesn't equate to removing literally everything that made the character iconic and memorable in the first place. That's just doing the bare minimum of showing up and doing nothing else. And yet, despite being proven wrong many times, Sonic fans still go through Amy's past portrayals just to say, thank God she's not like this anymore. Will go on about how she's more mature now and isn't a stalker anymore, like they even fucking know what these things mean. These tourists that can't afford to sit through any of Amy's appearances prior to 2010 without complaining that she's too girly, too annoying, or whatever, are really just making up a bunch of different excuses and ways of saying that they hate uniqueness. That they want every single fucking female character in existence to be the same tomboy girl boss type. The same goddamn motherfucking characters. Basically every other character that isn't named Sally or Blaze. Because that's all we fucking know. People don't want a sense of individuality, uniqueness, or practically anything that helps flesh out the Sonic universe and the people that live in it. No, everyone just wants their precious shonen, anime, hype, aura moments. We sure do love our Dragon Ball Z rip-offs, our Deus Machinas, because that's all we fucking know we want these days. That's really what the Sonic series is all about from the get-go. Just a bunch of dudes camera whoring, aura farming, and jerking each other off. Nobody wants to slow down and appreciate the small things that make the Sonic universe feel massive and alive. No, we just want to be overstimulated with so much explosions, so much shit being shoved down our screens as much as possible to fuel up our ADHD brains. We're just so fucking boring. That's really what the folks at Sega Japan envisioned for this series, to cater to all the dude bros and the little boys that don't know any better. Like, go fuck yourselves. Even in games where she wasn't mischaracterized, people still feel the need to demonize her for acting in a way that any 12-year-old girl would. It's absolutely pathetic. Wow, she's no longer a bastardized version from 2005. What a compliment. That still doesn't change the fact that she's still a nothing character. Like, give me something else that isn't about her crush being towed down, because I'm not seeing it here at all. Even when you ask people to name one notable trait or thing she did or said in any of the games in the 2010s and the 2020s, they can't seem to give a clear answer themselves, because they know deep down that she's that bland. They just don't want to admit it. Every time we get something ever so slightly remotely positive, Sonic fans have to come up with some excuse that, oh, it's not canon, or that it doesn't make up for her bad appearances, or that they hype up other characters to show how much better they are than Amy ever will be. Every single time we try to educate and correct people by explaining Amy's actual characterization and how they've been misled by their own lies, we always get villainized and labeled as toxic for it. Even when we're simply just expressing why we love Amy so much without any discourse mentioned, there's always some fucking jackass purposely dropping some obviously bad lone portrayal from the 2000s as a way to ratio us and to say, oh, shall you want Stalker Amy back? As if we don't fucking know that already. I swear to God, this is quite literally the real life version of the Pancakes Waffles tweet. Every time we bring up something good about Amy, or really just anything about her in general, all these brain-dead, uneducated Sonic fans come out of the woodwork to immediately bring up all the bad shit. Sonic fans just can't deal with the fact that maybe people just love this character for who she is. Instead, they have to come up with all these excuses to invalidate and slander our enjoyment, like we're all nostalgia-blinded Japanese purists and are stuck in the past. Because Sonic fans just can't let us be happy. They just cannot let us have a fucking W. We just can't fucking win. Let's just dick ride sites like TV Tropes and the Mirahese wikis that are totally not biased at all and totally don't present their opinions as facts. And if you're not dick riding these sites, chances are you'll just get crucified on some shitty subreddit populated by the most abhorrent, terminally online Sonic fans you'll ever encounter. Because it's all an echo chamber there full of toxic dick riding sheep and fanboys embodying the worst kinds of toxic positivity. Let people enjoy what they want, dude. Yeah, well, if your idea of enjoyment is gatekeeping and ruining the whole experience for Amy fans like myself, then you're a real piece of shit. Every time we ask for Amy to get more screen time or just be handled better by the team running the social media accounts, we get told to shut up, that Amy has way too much, that Amy doesn't even matter, and we're just ungrateful and should just stop being annoying. Even though we're only trying to stick up for our favourite character, just like how everyone else is sticking up to theirs. Like, it's fine when Shadow fans constantly ask for him to be in every game and media that's being put out these days. But no, it's only bad when it's us Amy fans doing it. This fanbase complains that Amy is a boring character and needs to be improved. Yet whenever Amy does get that opportunity to prove these naysayers wrong, those same people turn back around to complain that she has too much. Like, what the fuck is it then? Do you guys want Amy to be good or not? And yet, I still wonder why Amy fans, like myself, have to work twice as hard to be accepted as part of this fanbase. Because this fanbase just doesn't fucking listen! I see Sonic fans boast about how great Sonic, Shadow, Knuckles, and all those cool characters are. And I'm just like, well, what about Amy being good at things? Why can't Amy get some love too? Aren't her feats and achievements not good enough for you all? And even if she is somehow portrayed well to the fandom, Sonic fans still feel the need to bring up all these shitty, fucking, unfunny jokes of how much of a stalker she is, and bringing up her colorblind gag, because that's totally just as funny as the first 1,000 times it's brought up. The fact that I, and many other people, get called a fake fan or a hater for not liking this new direction of Amy really explains a lot about them, and how they never actually paid attention to her character, let alone even cared for her. Despite the fact that I've been an Amy fan for well over a decade, with my first exposure to her being literally her first game appearance. So I know what she was like, know her way more than these so-called fans claim to be. There's a lot of weird incel energy in the Sonic fandom, because a vast majority of them are all little boys and men who for some reason are still stuck in this 90s mindset where girls are all icky and they're afraid they're gonna get cooties from them. I know people personally that hate Amy just for the fact that she's pink. I'm just gonna say it. The Sonic fanbase does have a misogyny problem. And I know this as someone who experienced a lot of fucking sexism and misogyny from these so-called fans towards Amy. Her crush was never the problem. And I'm so sick and tired of being gaslit into believing it ever was. No, it's the Western audience that needs to grow up. That's really just some bullshit memery that Sonic fans have fed into. This narrative that Sonic hates Amy's guts, and Amy's just some pathetic Meg Griffin type loser that we all laugh at for being useless. Which has been amplified up to 12 from YouTube parodies that people have all taken to heart, and have mistaken from being the actual thing. No, it's everyone else that just kisses Sonic's ass 24/7, dismissing every one of Amy's feats as her stalking. Like they even fucking know what stalking even is. They just throw that blanket term around to mask the fact that they're too fucking lazy to actually read the source material and watch the actual fucking cutscenes that's presented in front of them. It's completely fine for Sonic to play with Amy's feelings, stand her up on dates, and just overall being a complete asshole in Sonic X. But Amy having that same hint of edge herself is just stepping over the fucking line. We just fucking love Sonic for the dude bro hit that he is, because he's the man. It's never Sonic is an asshole to people, it's always Amy is the fangirl that should just shut up. Remember when everyone clowned on that one infamously horrendous Sonic fan redesign? It was universally despised for the sole reason that it went against everything Sonic stood for. Well, imagine those same people reacting to Amy's new personality. You'll never see any of that same backlash. Because people don't care. People just fine with Amy being a nothing character. Because they just have no fucking standards. Or they just don't care. So much of the hate Amy gets is also from shippers. Ships have been a huge part in the Sonic community, and considering that Amy's entire character is centered around her love for another, you'd imagine that Amy would have it out the worst. Surprise, surprise, you're right. The shippers are the most toxic part of any community, and I shouldn't even have to explain why, because I also didn't really want to bring these people up, but I'm honestly too far deep into this rant to resist. They can't stand the fact that Amy's the female lead that happens to get together with Sonic. So they make up so many excuses and justifications to belittle and shame anyone for ever liking the character in the first place. They can't deal with the fact that Sonic's with Amy and not with them. They see Amy's relationship with Sonic as a threat to their Yuri gay ships, and get all pissy when they realise their shitty headcanons and the Yuri gay ships they love so much will never happen in a million lifetimes, and is nothing more than a sexual fantasy to them. Oh, if that statement pisses you off, well good! Because I'm talking to you! I want you to get pissed off. My goal here is to piss you all off. Just like how you pissed me off all those years ago. It's why so many of these YouTubers exist, to amplify the hatedom even further. All because they personally don't like it. Words cannot describe just how easy it would have been, and how much headaches would have been avoided had they just admit straight out that they just don't like Amy or the ship, and just leave it at that. But no, shippers have to make up some justification as to why Amy's the sexist, problematic character, as it means to shit on her fans for merely existing, and to hype up their preferred ship. All because Sonic is with a girl other than themselves, or for the fact they're so horny for Sonic's blue ass cock, just like everyone else in this fandom. It's pathetic. Because everybody wants to be the main character. Everyone wants to act like they're so morally superior over everyone else. The people that boast about how much better they are always have some skeletons hiding in their closet. And I know this firsthand, especially at the Sonic fandom at large. So many well-known members of the Sonic community hyping themselves up as being happy and welcoming and are now being outed for being shitty human beings. It happens all the time. The same thing goes for practically every Sonic fan that's a Dubro, a shipper, part of Gen Z, or a combination of the three. I really didn't want to bring up DeviantArt either, because I know I'm picking on the low-hanging fruit, because everyone knows how much of a cesspool that site really is. But it cannot be understated just how vile and toxic the people there are when it comes to expressing their hatred towards Amy. Everybody knows how infamous DeviantArt was for the Sonic fandom back in its heyday, but the shitty fan art I've seen that people have made of Amy, particularly her Sonic X portrayal, being tortured, killed, punched, whatever, as well as the shitty fan groups made to hate on Amy, is quite literally the most fucked up shit I've ever had the misprivilege of seeing in my entire life. These disgusting man-children that still live in their parents' basement, doing nothing other than sit on their fat asses all day, starting shitty shipping and character debates, while also having the decency to call themselves artists. It's like, what the fuck? People come up with this shitty justification that she's a fictional character, so none of this matters. Yeah, a fictional character that's still a fucking child, a little girl that I sort of looked up to, and held dearly as some kind of sister or daughter figure, and also as someone that's experienced a lot of the same trauma from my childhood, and to pass all that fucked up shit I've seen of her is just expressing their creativity or whatever. Like, fuck off! Your art is fucking shit! It will always be shit, and I hope AI comes in and replaces all of you. I'm gonna be a bitch here by also lumping in the Twitter artist crowd here too, because they're just as immature and pathetic with how they drag themselves into this mess. Most of the Sonic fanbase these days consists of Gen Zers, and this current modern day Zoomer generation is so incredibly sensitive and so chronically offended by everything that they feel the need to call out everything they personally don't like to label as problematic. They seem to think that every time they speak, the words of God are coming out of their mouths. They never set a foot outside to experience the real world around them, which explains why they think slapstick humor is the same fucking thing as real life crimes. Or that Amy is actually blackmailing Sonic in SA2. Like, what the fuck is that all about? These Zoomers are so terminally online to really think that's what this is. And also, just taking her choosing Sonic over the world line in 06 so literally, because this fanbase takes everything so fucking literally about Amy all the time for some reason. I don't know when it's them being stupid, or they're really just trying to piss me the fuck off. The people arguing that Amy is totally a much better character now than she was in the 2000s are the ones so perpetually offended by everything that they want to infiltrate and destroy everything because everything is racist and sexist and transphobic and we need to point it all out. Because that surely worked the last time with Sonic's movie design and how this fanbase literally harassed and bullied an entire company into delaying the movie for a full year just to change the design that was already finalized, mind you. They reckon that, hey, if we can get enough people to rally against the current thing, we can get what we want if we just screech loud enough to the heavens. That we can control art and have a piece of art delivered and packaged to us in a specific way. That we understand 30 years worth of character history more than the actual creators themselves. As if we're more important. It's the type of shit I see with artists giving Amy black shorts, back quills and all kinds of shit they consider to be improvements to her design, when really they're doing this not for fun, but because they hate Amy so much that they want to change literally everything about her to cater to their needs, or in their case to keep up with the times. Who in their right minds would unironically think that adding black shorts would not clash with Amy's already perfect red and pink color scheme? Who was the first ever person to come up with the idea that Amy would look so much better with back quills? Because that totally wouldn't mess up her already perfect and recognizable silhouette. That is how fucking stupid and brain dead Sonic fans are. Oh, while we're at it, let's just have it so Amy doesn't interact with Sonic at all in the movies. Let's have it be the other way around. So now, Sonic's the one chasing after Amy. Because that's definitely so much better than when Amy's doing it. Or how about Amy is instead Sonic's long-lost sister or something? Such great ideas we have. How do we not think of this earlier? And we'll just have Anna motherfucking Kendrick be the one to voice her as the cherry on top of it all. Who has time to sit down to speculate? Of all the possible voice actors out there, that could give Amy the best, youthful voice imaginable. We could just get the most boring, basic bitch choice we could possibly think of, who sounds way too old, and doesn't even sound remotely close to how Amy should sound. Oh yes, Sega! Give me more of this! Yes, Ian Flynn! Give me more of this, Amy! Give me more of Amy just standing around doing nothing at all, and not saying a fucking word. Because spouting out how she's totally a much stronger, independent character now, and nothing else, that's totally so much better than the times where she used to chase Sonic. Amy was a much better character, when she still had her old classic outfit, and was just a nice girl, unlike the evil bitch she became once she started wearing red. We should also just remove Amy's hammer too, as if that's apparently problematic now. Oh yes, Ian Flynn, fuck me, suck my dick, please feed me more of your food, I mean slop, I'm dying over here, like shut the fuck up! What the fuck is that all about? Who the fuck do you think you all are? What the fuck are you guys doing? Asking for all this garbage? Have you all lost your fucking minds? Because you guys have officially made me lose my fucking marbles! You're ruining everything! There is something that you Sonic fans will never understand. You have no idea of the pain that I've suffered and endured in this fandom for the past several years. You have no idea what it feels like to have someone gaslight the entire fanbase into believing that we are evil people for the stuff we like, and stuff we like is garbage. Because that's what Dumpsville did! Throughout the late 2010s into the early 2020s, Dumpsville's entire persona was making fun of Amy Rose and Tsunami fans. For an extremely long 5 years. Every one of his supporters were gassing him up and witch hunting virtually any Amy Rose fan they could find. Even if those people they were going after weren't even toxic at the slightest, and haven't even fucking done anything. And I was unfortunate enough to be lumped into this whole mess, as I too was harassed and bullied to no end for even being a fan. All because of some stupid ship drama that happened over a decade ago. And all because of the very few bad apples that happened to ruin the whole experience for everyone else. It's because of him and you guys that we had to suffer through relentless, unnecessary bullying and pushback from Sonic fans for fucking years. All because you Sonic fans just cannot think for yourselves and use your own brains for once. And as a result, I became completely fucking afraid of ever being an Amy fan, and hidden off from being a true Sonic fan for the longest time. Literally every single Amy fan corner and discussion he could find, he would make several videos on, slandering her fans and encouraging his audience, mainly consisting of children by the way, to go out and harass them. I could not ever talk about Amy Rose without the fear of some of these kids would have me in their crosshairs. And boy, was I a huge target for them. Not only for expressing how much I wanted Amy to be represented in the Mania Plus DLC right up to its release, but also how much I stuck up for the two people that were endlessly harassed for the toxic shit they did, despite apologizing for their actions months to years beforehand. Because this fanbase loves to blow things out of proportion and burn things to the fucking ground, not knowing when enough is a fucking enough!
So this guy supposedly made Sally Slap Sonic because he was a Son Amy fan. What a fucking fan brat cunt are responsible for at least half of the toxicity in the Son Amy fandom. I mean, Son Amy fans are literally retarded. They'll call Sally Acorn a Mary Sue with no evidence to back it up, other than she's a princess. But I gotta give a big fuck you to John Gray. I mean, John, dude, you literally did this for the sake of your ship. That is sick, malicious, and immature. I do think he needs a reevaluation, especially after the shit he pulled with Sally Acorn. Oh, fuck John Gray, fuck Sonic 134, and fuck Sonic IDW, because that shit's underwhelming. But
Leia.
pandering! I sure do love pandering! Let me pander a little bit real quick. Sally Acorn! The reason Sega should put Amy Rose in Sonic Mania Plus is so that they can pander to your daughter, who nobody knows, and according to you, is a literal baby. Now, Amy is wholly dependent on Sonic. That's her character. She is a pink hedgehog who wears dresses and loves girly things. She thinks emotionally and loves all things that are cute, including little flickies that have Chaos Emeralds. It's like all the Sega executives were like in their office and they're like, oh, we got to make a new female character. And they're like, what the color do we make her? And then like Yuji Naka's like, oh, let's make her pink. All the women love the pink color, dude. Oh, Amy here, Amy there, Amy here, Amy there. Amy's a one-dimensional character. Where's my Blaze love, to be honest? And yet you got people like True Love for 94 and every other Son Amy fan having this big old circle jerk going, yes, put Amy Rose in Sonic Mania. Like, come on, shut up. Be happy that we're getting more of a great game. This hashtag room for one more bullshit. And it's just, it's whining over something useless. We don't need Amy Rose as a playable character for any reason. I think Amy's old personality was fucking obnoxious, but her current personality is literally just woman. People who call Sally Acorn a Mary Sue are Son Amy fans, who use it as a buzzword and don't even know what it means. The only reason Son Amy fans try to prove that Sally Acorn is a Mary Sue is because they're Son Amy fans and love their shipping way too much. But yet at the same time, they can't argue for shit. So when they find out about the existence of a character who has a long relationship with Sonic, they throw around baseless ad hominems in order to vent their anger and slander a fictional chipmunk. So long story short, Sally Acorn is not a Mary Sue. Son Amy fanbrats are just stupid.
How is it fair that fans of other characters and ships get swept under the rug every single time they do shit that's deemed toxic? But yet, it's us Amy fans that get dragged into the fucking ground for it. Ironic how this is all done in the name of kicking out the bad apples in the Sonic community. All in a while preaching about how they are so oppressed, so overhated, and how they're actually good people trying to do the right thing and are accepting of everyone else, regardless of their background, when they also turn back around and do shit like this. So you're telling me that Sonic fans lash out and gatekeep every single critic and journalist out there for giving Sonic bad scores and playing the victim every time someone brings up the likes of Game Grumps and Pro Jared for daring to say anything remotely negative about the series and tarnishing the series' reputation during the 2010s. Yet you all willingly let some idiot YouTuber brainwash all of you into believing Amy Rose was always this worthless character that contributes nothing to the series, and have every other artist, Sonic Tuber, whoever, interact with him as if he's one of you, that he's part of the so-called positive community. I see people making all kinds of fan art of him, sending him so much love, sympathy, and pity that he lost a close friend of his. Well, where's my fucking pity? Where's my warm hugs and hot cocoa after all the shit that I've went through? The people that harassed us, either by starting up shipping wars or for whatever other reason, they're not the ones being toxic. No, it's us evil Amy fans that are toxic just because we're apparently the only ones that have made cringe fan art, dog shit fanfics, start shipping wars with other shippers. It's only us! Sending death threats, raiding and boycotting every fan server, making every Amy fan feel guilty just for being a fan to begin with, and even driving a couple of my friends to the point of developing suicidal tendencies. That's all fair game, but liking Amy Rose is stepping over the fucking line. You think being a Sonic fan is hard? Well, try being an Amy Rose fan during the 2010s that actually liked her original characterization, and tell me how that goes out for you. Even years later, after he has left the Sonic community, he has still not apologized to the people who hurt. His fans have hurt. To me. When all the Sonic content dried up, he left and took the easy way out. It just goes to show that just because someone has moved on from something entirely, that does not mean people have forgotten about it. And guess what? I don't even want his fucking apology. The damage is done, and clearly that damage has paved way for many other copycats to add fuel to the fucking fire, starting this whole cycle all over again. You'll be criticizing anyone that ever dares to stick up for Amy, or even has a slightly positive take on her, yet be dick riding and parroting everyone that has a negative opinion on Amy, just because you can't form your own fucking opinions. You just have to get them from someone else. And unfortunately, this sort of mindset and relentless bullying is the sole reason why Amy is the watered down girl she is now. There is a clear difference between Sonic fans and I. The reason why I'm saying all of this is because I actually care about Amy. I love Amy with all my heart, and have been ever since I first became a fan of the series, which was literally with her first ever game appearance. So I know what she used to be like. My love for this fictional character is on the same level as my love for my real life family. I love Amy way more than even Sonic himself. But to the rest of the Sonic fanbase, she is nothing more than a punching bag and a self-insert for fandom discourse that will be forgotten in the next couple of days. If Amy disappeared from the series tomorrow, you shippers, dude bros, Twitter drones, artists, people that claim to be huge fans of Amy but actually hate everything about her and want to change everything about her would not give a shit one bit. They won't. They will just move on with their lives and act like as if she never existed and nothing happened. And how do I know this? Because I see this happen myself with practically every single thing that gets popular these days. Every fucking time. It doesn't even matter what the hobby or the thing is. People invade it and they ruin it. They would complain that something is too hard to understand, or that it's too hard to get into, or that it just personally offends them. So they demand for things to be changed to make it more accessible and inclusive to them, not giving a fuck about the people that liked Amy the way she was. They move in and they change everything. So much to the point which is completely unrecognizable from her original self. And before you know it, everything all goes to shit. And everybody that loved her leaves. Including the people that wanted her to change. They move on and act as if nothing happened. The worst part is, they don't even feel remorse for destroying something that people love. They're just completely fine with the fact that they could just change things on a dime. If the Sonic fanbase decides tomorrow that Amy simply saying the word Sonic is offensive, then bam! Just like that, every single moment Amy ever had with Sonic is frowned upon, and Sega will just stop having Amy interact with Sonic altogether. And the fans that have influences changed to be an improvement, to have fixed Amy, would look down on the people that have ever liked the character in the past, and poke fun at the fact that they like something that's now considered outdated. This is the fucking people that you want to listen to and support, who you consider everything they say to be in good faith, when all they're doing is fucking complaining that something they hate is popular with fans, instead of finding something or someone else that appeals to them. But no, let's just go after this one character because it's trendy to do so and we're all lazy as shit. They're the ones kicking us out of our own spaces, all in the name of fixing something they deem as outdated, and to keep up with the times. Because they just want to gaslight themselves into believing a girl's crush on a boy is some kind of toxic, outdated trope, as opposed to being something that's part of her and defines her. I don't know if it ever occurs to these people, but changing Amy to be more inclusive or whatever the fuck doesn't fucking equate to softening the edges and changing and removing everything people loved. about Amy. Yeah, you know what Amy fans really want? A version where Amy's completely nothing like her old self. Just have her just be completely unrecognizable. Like, that totally won't piss them all off. I'm willing to bet that all those 90s Sonic fans who were beating Sonic to a pulp in the 2000s have already left the series by the time the game started pandering to them in the 2010s. You'd think all those boomer Sonic fans were really gonna be there long term? Like, no. Of course not. There were actually people who thought the Generations rewrite was gonna make everyone forget about the original party scene with Sonic. But guess what? Even after the Generations rewrite came out, people still reference the old scene with Sonic pushing Amy away. Because it's much easier and funnier that way to shit all over Amy's character. They just don't fucking care either way. No matter how many times the writers try bending to the naysayers' will, Amy will always be that stupid, annoying girly girl that everyone loves to hate. It's telling that the same people that hated me and bullied me because they thought I was some weird loser for liking a girly character in a boys franchise are now trying so desperately hard to be included in our club. It is absolutely pathetic. It's not like they've been apologetic about it either. You think all those kids that bullied me back then are apologetic now? Like, no, of course not. They did their part and moved on to the next trend like they always do, without even acknowledging the people they've hurt. And I doubt they even remember me either, when I just happen to be another one of their countless victims. Just another day in the office for them. Every single time someone makes a written or video essay criticizing Ian Flynn's treatment of Amy, there's always a plethora of butthurt Sonic fans digging up old shit in a vain effort to cancel them and drive them off the internet. All the while labeling those people as transphobic, homophobic, and every other buzzword we could think of. Even though we fucking harass one another for liking fictional characters, the fact we can all take the time off our daily lives on Twitter to talk about the real issues of the world is enough proof that we're all such great people. We quote shitty fucking fan dubs and burn every joke to the goddamn ground every day and expect outsiders to not be annoyed at our stank. We just love this stupid fucking franchise about a talking blue hedgehog that runs fast and makes corny jokes with all our hearts because we don't fucking care at all, and we harass anyone that doesn't fall in line with the Sonic fanbase quota. And that's really the fucking thing that gets me. All these fans, artists, YouTubers, these so-called brand defenders, ambassadors, whatever the fuck you want to call them. People that just love this franchise unconditionally. You're all bootlicking and devoted to something that can never, ever truly love you back. Like you think the high-ups at Sega are gonna give you a free handout every time you glaze virtually every new fucking game that comes out. Or you just kiss the very ground the series walks on. Like, what has this series done for you? Why do you fucking care? In what fucking way has this series benefited you in a positive way, other than just forcing yourself into these meaningless debates? Because I'm genuinely confused. I see all these Sonic fans that are just sucking up to the series and saying how much they love it, how much it means to them, and how much it has changed their lives. Even some of these stupid fucking gimmick accounts I've seen, made purposely to spread all this fake love and positivity bullshit in the fandom. And I'm just like, grow the fuck up! Throw out all your Sonic bedsheets, your merch, your clothes, lay off the Kool-Aid, and fuck off! Ian may pretend to love Amy, and claim how he's doing her justice, but actions speak louder than words. The design changes in Prime, the personality shifts that were done without even a slight understanding of Amy's character, even the bio changes in the Fast Friends website and in the Generations rewrite, it all makes perfect sense. Having Amy move on from Sonic with a whole share her love to the world speech feels way more akin to Ian Flynn slapping a band-aid over the problem rather than fixing it entirely. All doing it with a crooked smile on his face that looks like it belongs on the very panels he writes. Ian has tried to mitigate the damage by bringing up old references to gaslight people into believing that this is all just her growing up and maturing, when really it's just watering down what was once a bright pocket full of energy into a fucking pulp. This is all done to hammer in the fact that she is now this strong, independent woman that needs no man and can do the same shit the boys can. But just like we see in Incredibles, when everyone is super, nobody is. Ian has absolutely no respect for Amy's character or her fans that have been built upon for decades, and as a result, I have absolutely no respect for this man, and I will do everything in my power to avoid throwing down a single penny for anything with his name plastered on it, and encouraging others to do the same. Which is why I've made the bold decision of not hyping myself up for Frontiers 2 at all, like everyone else in this fandom, because I know that he will find a way to screw Amy up in that game even further, by having her go through some bullshit meaningless arc, as well as poking fun at how she used to be. If Amy has a scene along the lines of apologizing to Sonic for all of her wrongdoings, but never addressed Sonic's, I will straight out kill myself. If those rumors of the Sonic 06 remake do end up becoming true, then I absolutely want no part of it, or any other Sonic remakes in that matter. Because I know for sure that Ian is going to change Amy's portrayal in that game. He is going to change things in that game that he personally doesn't like. Even with all the resources and tools possible to make the game a functional, safe product in the present, current day, polishing a turd doesn't stop it from becoming a fucking turd. Ian is just another overrated, average writer in the series that I want nothing to do with, and is only praised by the fandom for doing the very bare minimum. Wearing a fucking cowboy hat doesn't automatically make him the Filoni of the Sonic series. And by the time his work is done and has passed the torch to whoever is going to be his successor, the only legacy he will leave behind was making the whole series even more convoluted and worse than it already was. And no, his writing credits in Shadow Generations doesn't erase a whole decade of decay and mediocrity. Because when you put away the amount of nostalgia pandering and forced referencing, that game is nothing more than an over-glorified remake of a game that should have came out 2 years after the original. And the original didn't even need to be remade to begin with. That is how thirsty and starving Sonic fans really are for content. So Ian can just take his shitty OCs, his forced references, and his pathetic excuse for character development, and just go find another group of people to pander his own ideologies to, because I'm done! I'm so fucking done with everything. Fuck the games, fuck all the fan art, the fandubs, the animations, the headcanons, all of it! The funny thing is, these people aren't going to be watching this video anyway. I highly doubt that their TikTok, Skibidi Ohio fueled brains and short attention spans would even stomach watching an hour-long video on Amy Rose, let alone make it this far into the video. So maybe this whole rant will just be all for nothing at the end of the day. But if they are watching this right now, if they've made it this far and haven't clicked off in rage after I dared to call out their shitty headcanons, keep in mind that this is all your guys' own fucking fault. You can blame Sega, Sonic Team, Flynn, whoever, all you want. But the truth of the matter is, you all let this happen. Every fan art, video essay, headcanons, rants, ships, discussions, the YouTubers you watch, and the content you consume, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. All of this has contributed to the downfall and death of this character. Her haters, her so-called fans, heck, even the people that used to hate her but not anymore, are all part of the problem too. Because maybe if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't even be in this situation in the first place. When you give people like Flynn false positive feedback on Amy, it gives the impression that he and the rest of the writers don't even need to try anymore. They could literally have Amy just been in the background somewhere, and you'll just still gas it up as Amy maturing because you don't know any better and you refuse to learn. It is willful ignorance. You've all killed Amy Rose. You took this happy little girl, so full of life and love, devoured every ounce of happiness, and just fucking murdered her. You'll claim to be all about spreading kindness and love within the community, yet you decided to go after the one character that was all about that. You destroyed every shot of happiness and life from this little girl. You took everything away from me. Every shot of happiness that I ever had. Everything I ever loved! And now, I want you all to pay. It must feel so great for you all that all these years and decades you spent of calling her a stalker has resulted in Amy's death. And to think that I used to defend this fandom. The fact of the matter is, I too used to be the Sonic fanbase's strongest soldier. I used to get overly defensive of the adventure games back in the 2010s when those games were getting shat on. I'd actually get pissed whenever someone brings up Mario as the better character in the franchise. But now? I just fucking laugh! Because that's exactly how I feel as an Amy fan. Seeing all these Sonic fans getting all pissy over game critics and YouTubers slandering their precious franchise gives me so much joy. And you know what? I hope they continue to do so. I just have to say that I was fucking glad Frontiers didn't win that Player's Voice Award. I didn't even give a shit that Genshin won over it. I just want Sonic fans to lose. Hard. And I hope they keep on losing. I hope the series and the movies continue to get snuffed at every awards show imaginable. I hope Game Grumps and IGN come back from the dead to roast this franchise again and rub it all in their faces. I hope every Mario game outsells the next Sonic games and the series goes bankrupt for it. Just because I want Sonic fans to lose. Because that's how much I hate Sonic fans and how little I care for this fucking franchise now. Because this fanbase deserves nothing! They deserve everything they got thrown at them! They don't deserve to sit there and be happy! They all deserve shit! I'll be doing everything in my power to steer as many people away from the series as I possibly could. I'm going to tell my family and my friends, who are then going to tell their families and friends. They'll continue to spread it across the globe. And I hope they do, just to get everyone to open their fucking eyes at just how shit this fanbase and fandom really is. I'll continue to hate on this fanbase and franchise until the day I die! Until I'm lying on my deathbed, I'll be coasting through life, knowing that I've successfully turned the entire nation, no, the entire world, against the Sonic fanbase and the series itself. It's because of you guys that the Sonic fanbase will go down in history as the worst fanbase of all time. I should have listened to all those people that were trashing on the series back in the 2000s and the 2010s. Because they were all secretly trying to warn me. They were all warning me of all the shit that this fanbase is infamous for. I should have never joined the Sonic fandom or the Twitter community in the first place. I was wrong for ever defending them in the first place, and for thinking the Sonic fanbase was just this oppressed group of passionate individuals, when this really just always was a garbage franchise pandering to the absolute worst, lowest common denominator. I even should have just listened to those dark thoughts I had, and just popped that trigger back when I still had the fucking chance. The Sonic fanbase deserves every bit of hate they've gotten through the past 4 decades, and I heavily regret ever sticking up for them in the first place. No amount of fan games, glazing, or fanned up dick riding is ever gonna change that fact that this is the most toxic, sexist, misogynistic, xenophobic, piece of shit, deadbeat fandom I've ever seen. Because if anything, all those things that people love about this franchise are nothing more than mere distractions from the real truth. You're all addicts, always waiting for that new game, the new high, anything that would give you all a small dopamine rush. Not even realizing how addicted you all are before it's too late. And it doesn't take very long for that new toy to reach its expiration date. And once the recency bias wears off, you'll soon realize the thing you've been glazing at for so long has always been nothing but shit, and the whole cycle repeats all over again. You hide under this fake facade of everyone being so happy and we're all gonna stick together until the very end, when really, you're just all addicted to the same drug. Oh, isn't that harsh? Yeah, must feel real shitty to have someone step all over you and what you love like it's worth nothing. If this video ends up painting a target on my back for gatekeeping Abby Rose from everyone and makes me a laughingstock, I don't give a fuck. Hell, even during my previous videos, I was purposely holding back my anger and rage, because I hoped that there would at least be someone out there that would consider me credible and wouldn't pass me off as one of those toxic, ignorant Amy fans out there. Well, I don't give a shit about that no more. I've been way too fucking nice and patient with this fanbase for so long, and I've ran out of second chances to give to them. If they don't respect me as one of them, then why should I respect them? I'm done being nice. The nice side of me left me a long time ago. This is really who I am. If I can't have Amy, then no one can. This fanbase doesn't deserve her. And I don't want this whole fanbase to suffer for killing the very thing I loved so much. Amy Rose is dead, and it's all because of you! So, you might be confused as to where all this anger and vitriol is coming from. Because, well, who knows? What was the once a thoughtful analysis on Amy Rose has now devolved into an angry rant against the Sonic fanbase. My vitriol was something that I was actually hyping myself up throughout this series. I've been plopping in a few casual references to my past every now and then, only now that I've fully unleashed right here for the world to see. Coming out of this tonal whiplash, you might have one question pop up in your mind throughout this entire series that you want to ask, and that is, well, why? Why do I care? Why do I have such strong feelings for this fictional pink hedgehog? And what motivates me into making an hour long, let alone 6 videos, defending Amy Rose for the whole world to see? Even more so coming from a guy that wouldn't usually be the type of person to gravitate towards a character like Amy in the first place. Well, the answer is not one anyone would expect. I happened to rediscover the Sonic series during the mid-2010s. At the time, I was still in high school and had just gotten out of a toxic, unhealthy friendship, which meant that I was completely alone with absolutely no friends. Making new friends was very close to impossible for me, as I've always been the shy, awkward type. So I turned my attention to the virtual online world. Even though I already knew who Amy was since I grew up with the Gems collection, I didn't really pay that much thought and attention to her. As I said in my previous videos, there wasn't a whole lot going on for Amy in the classic era. Believe it or not, I too used to be one of those boys that didn't care for female girly characters. Not that I actively disliked them in the same way all these filthy dubros that populate the Sonic fandom do, but it's just the games and media I grew up playing and watching, all the girls were mainly one-dimensional, with nothing noteworthy to mention about them. Thus, I dismissed them and didn't put that much thought and care into them because they're just that. Seeing Amy's modern outfit in the Gems collection library, however, really got my attention. Since I only grew up playing the classic games and a couple of obscure 2000s games my old friend lent me back in the day, before I rediscovered the series as a whole, seeing Amy and what I thought at the time was her new look, it really made me curious. Because of how her modern design hooked me in a way her classic design didn't, and how different it was to her classic outfit, I had a lot of unanswered questions. What is she going to be like? Is she still even the same character? Is she completely different? What is she going to sound like? I would not get the answers to these questions for a good few years. That is, until in 2016, where I picked up the series again out of boredom and curiosity. I finally got myself to play Sonic Adventure DX, watched a few Sonic X episodes, and even watched some of the cutscenes in the games I've never played, all for the first time. And that was when I saw her. Seeing Amy being this cute, bubbly, and happy-go-lucky girl as an angsty and isolated 15-year-old at the time, it completely turned my world upside down. From this moment on, Amy always brightened up my mood whenever I felt down, and she made me smile every time I saw her. She gave me so much warmth and comfort in a time where I literally wanted the whole world to burn and was absolutely craving some form of escape and some kind of way out. Being this invested in Amy Rose and the Sonic series at the time really felt like I was transported into another world. A world away from my own, where the grass is greener on the other side, literally. I was captivated and enamored with Amy in a way that I wasn't with any other character before or since. She was literally one of the reasons why I am even still alive today, for the love of God. It's safe to say that my life at that moment changed forever. Amy was quite literally the reason why I even started giving a shit about female characters to begin with. She'd made me go from not caring about female characters in general to being all like, wow, now that's a female character that doesn't suck. Little did I know that I immediately became a fan. I became an Amy Rose fan way before I knew what being a fan of something meant. I became part of the Sonic fandom way before I knew fandoms existed, let alone knew what the concept of fandoms were. I shipped Sonic and Amy together way before I knew shipping was even a thing. At that point on, I decided that I want to follow the series. So that's what I did. I began collecting and playing more games, watching more shows, and being hooked with Amy Rose more and more. I started roaming around more freely, looking for whatever Sonic fandom circles I could find. Ultimately, being part of the Sonic fandom before I even knew it. I wanted to know what everyone thought, what people were saying, possibly meeting and making new friends in the process that love Amy Rose just as much as I do. But little did I know, however, that my own curiosity would end up being my own undoing. Initially, it wasn't all that bad at first. Okay, so it's just one guy. Not the end of the world. But then came another, and another, and another, and before I knew it, I had travelled down a deep rabbit hole of hate towards Amy Rose. Large groups of people, mind you. A cesspool that have based their entire identities on expressing their undesirable, seething hatred towards Amy Rose. I was absolutely dumbfounded, shocked, and frankly, quite confused. I couldn't believe that such a cute and loving character like Amy, that I looked up to, has been the subject of toxicity in the Sonic fanbase this whole time. Was it something she did? Was it something she said? These series of events really sparked a newfound motivation inside of me. I took everything people were saying to heart and began scouring and over-analysing every bit of info and counter-arguments I could possibly find to use as fuel. I wanted to get to the bottom of what is it that people hate about Amy Rose. But the deeper hole I dug myself into, it was at that moment where I realised that Amy herself wasn't the problem. It was the Sonic fanbase. It was their fault for not understanding her character. It was their fault for purposely misinterpreting and spreading misinformation about her affections for Sonic as some kind of toxic trait. Hearing and finding the actual truth that Sonic fans were the ones harassing and belittling Amy fans in the first place for years, even literal decades, just for being a fan of the character, all the while clinging onto their outdated sexist, misogynistic beliefs. You could probably guess how angry I was when I eventually found out the horror stories I've heard from other Amy fans that stopped being a fan altogether because of that said vitriol. It really opened my eyes just how toxic and vile the Sonic fanbase really is. And that was really how my obsession started. I joined Twitter around 2018, where I made my love for Amy Rose known to the world. I made it very clear that I care for this character more than anything, and especially more than what most people give credit for. But little did I know that will soon be my biggest mistake. Like I mentioned already, I was bullied, harassed, and trolled relentlessly to no end by a huge and extremely loud vocal group of Amy haters, led by Dumpsville. Not just because I wanted to see Amy being playable in a mainline Sonic game again during the hype and release of the Mania Plus DLC, but also because of another Amy fan that was infamous at the time for being insanely toxic towards the people running the franchise, which gave these detractors more than enough fuel and ammunition to go after practically anyone in their vicinity that happens to be a fan of Amy Rose in one way or another. Not only that, I also became a victim of trolling because I dared to criticize certain popular YouTubers for making parodies that are contributing to Amy's mockery of her public image. These series of events have since birthed my everlasting rage and hatred towards the Sonic fanbase. Hearing about its toxicity was one thing, but actually experiencing it myself was something my angsty teenage self couldn't handle. Sonic wasn't the only thing I received harassment and bullying for. Around the same time, I was also a huge Marvel fan, and I clinged onto the MCU as a means to get away from the negativity and toxicity from the Sonic fanbase. Withdrawing from Sonic was short-lived, however, as I was once again dragged back to the usual discourse and gatekeeping surrounding the MCU at the time, and even the film community at large, which still persists today. All of this took place within my last 2 years of high school. Every single one of my peers and classmates were happily celebrating their achievements and cherishing their memories with the friends they made within the past 5 years. But me? I had nothing to cherish or be happy for. The only memories I ever made within those 5 years was sitting at home obsessing over stuff other people had made. This bled into my home life too, as even my parents saw the state I was in. They saw how much of a sheltered loner I was. Doors always closed off from everyone. They wanted to know why I was like this, why I'm not hanging out with the other kids. But I just couldn't answer them. It's not like I could give an actual reason why I'm the way I am. Making friends used to be a lot easier for me back in the day. But here, well, I guess I just didn't even bother trying. As the days grew closer to graduation, my future seemed bleak. Thus, the pressure from my parents to go out in the real world to be somebody when I still didn't even feel like myself also intensified. I felt like I had no future, nothing to strive for. The general takeaway I got from my online bullying and harassment was that I was a massive loser simply for the things I liked. Therefore, I didn't deserve to have a future or be happy. Combine my online harassment and bullying from Sonic fans with the realization and guilt that my time as a kid would forever be over and I'm forced to go out in the real world as an adult, the belittlement and estranged relationship with the people of my own blood, along with the sheer fact that everyone around me was a million times more happier and successful than I ever was, it all hit me pretty hard. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, and it all came crashing down on me. Throughout 2019, I fell into a huge pool of depression due to these reasons. But at the same time, I was still extremely angry towards everyone that attacked me and wanted to get back at them. So that's when I did the unthinkable. I became a troll and a bully myself. I would go out my way to troll, harass, and ridicule pretty much every Sonic fan I could possibly find. I would hype myself up as this high almighty figure that's way above the kiddie superficial shit Sonic fans are into. Pretty much pouting the exact same things people said to me about my love for Amy Rose and Marvel, when in reality I was suffering and crying inside. It didn't matter that most of the people I went after had absolutely nothing to do with my ruination. All that mattered was that I wanted Sonic fans to feel the same pain I felt. I wanted to cause as much damage to the Sonic fanbase as I possibly could within the smallest amount of time. I wanted to crush the Sonic fandom with my own hands and see them crumble right before my eyes. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I just kept egging on because I felt like I had nothing to lose. Well, it's been many years since that small incident, and part of me still wishes I was still doing it, as the Sonic fanbase has not changed one bit during those 6 or 7 years. To say that I was at the lowest point of my life would be a massive understatement. Confessing this now may turn some people off if they weren't already, and honestly, I don't blame them. It doesn't excuse everything I did, but I really mean it when I say that I really wasn't myself back then. People always say that high school's either the best or the worst time in anyone's lives, and mine is no different. 2018 and 2019 were quite literally the worst years of my life, and to this day I'll do pretty much anything to not be forced into reliving that depressing time period ever again. There was a glimmer of hope, however. I started college in 2020 and met a bunch of new people who eventually became my new friends. This was quite literally the first time in years where I wasn't alone and felt accepted, which is something I'm still grateful for. Being in the moment with people I care about and feel comfortable with took my attention away from Sonic for a while to focus on what's really important for me, my real life. Not even the COVID lockdowns separated myself from my newly found friends. It was then that I decided I was ready to come back to the Sonic fandom at full force and give it another chance. Fast forward to 2021, I found a tribe of other Amy fans that were also ostracized from the Sonic fandom like I was. I shared my story to them, and you couldn't believe how happy I was when they understood the pain I'd gone through. It really felt like things were starting to get better for me. I really thought I was on the path of reclaiming my happiness once again, something I haven't felt in such a long time. But one real-life event in February 2022 took all that away from me and completely changed everything. I probably won't explain what that incident was, as I think it's a little too personal to bring up here, as I've already exposed my life story enough as is, and frankly, I'm quite embarrassed to bring it up myself, but it really felt like my passion for the Sonic series and Amy Rose just got ripped right out at me at that moment. I don't even know how to explain it, but regardless, I've fallen back into another period of depression and hopelessness. The friends I made have all gone their separate ways, and I've isolated myself once again. I felt so useless and powerless at how everything I've worked towards was diminishing right before my very eyes. Because of this, I ended up flunking and eventually failing all my classes. And to think that I was going to have a bright future ahead, only to now go back to how I was even before I started college. All the confidence I had built up for the past 2 years has been ripped right out of my soul, and here I am once again being that afraid little boy closed off from everyone. Only this time I couldn't turn to Amy for comfort, as she became a huge target for discourse once again. All thanks to Frontiers and her 30th anniversary giving her a newly found spotlight among various YouTubers and Sonic fans deliberately trying their very hardest to slander everything Amy represented in the past in favour of Ian Flynn fixing her. It felt like history was repeating itself. I couldn't escape the vitriol and hate no matter where I turned. And the worst part is, nobody could. It was at this point where the Sonic fanbase were trying to make up a bunch of strawman arguments to gaslight Amy fans into believing they're supporting something evil and problematic, as if their livelihoods are determined by how much they enjoy a fictional character. Truth been told, the Sonic fanbase just became more hateful and negative as it ever was, and I was completely outnumbered once again. Amy herself was no longer a safe haven for me, because of how much people have completely turned against her. And in return, I too became more hateful and negative than I ever was. And this leads to where I am today. Still being the exact same bitter, shy, and lonely person as I ever was. Just casually floating in life with no ambitions or direction. Just merely existing with the sole purpose of getting through the day, hoping the next would be better, only to go through the exact same slog all over again. Every time a glimmer of hope comes my way, it always fades away one way or another. It feels it's like I'm being teased with all these false hopes and shots of happiness, but it doesn't take long to realize that all of that wishful thinking is nothing more than a bunch of imaginary keys jingling and fading right at my face. I'm just convinced that happiness isn't meant for me. Even though I am harsh throughout this series, and especially in this video alone, I'm still fair deep down, because I'll admit that these last few years have not been kind to me. Ever since that horrible incident, my life has been in turmoil. I've been constantly trying and failing at things, throwing everything I could at the wall hoping something sticks, with absolutely nothing sticking. Even though those dark days of being in the Sonic fandom happened many years ago, it still feels like yesterday to me. Everything has changed quite a lot since then, but at the same time, it really hasn't. I feel like I've been stuck in a time loop ever since, where nothing ever changes, and I'm just watching life pass me by, where I'm forced to watch something I love and hold dearest to my heart, being turned into a shallow imitation of herself and being passed off as the second coming of Christ by a newer, younger, more impressionable generation of Sonic fans. Everyone else became happier while I became angrier. I will admit that I've been kinda out of the loop with the Sonic series as of late. I didn't play Sonic Origins, I didn't play Superstars, Shadow Generations, or the Generations remake. Heck, I didn't even play that visual novel that was released on Steam as an April Fool's gift for free, simply for the fact that I didn't think I would like it. I also grew to hate many things, not just Sonic, but also certain groups of people, as you can probably tell from my rant. It's kinda hard for me to be excited about the series these days. A part of me still wants to enjoy these new things coming out like everyone else. But it seems like every time there's something that looks good, amazing maybe, enough for me to want to give it a fair chance, there's always something that has to come in and ruin the whole experience for me. Maybe it's because every time Sonic comes into my mind, I'm always reminded of the times where I was alone, miserable, and bullied to hell and back by the Sonic fanbase. Every time I see a Sonic profile pic, I immediately see red, because I know for sure the type of person the user in question really is. I just feel very isolated and alienated. I used to really love looking through fan art and other fan creations within the Sonic community. After hearing about the people I used to look up to showing their true colours, I don't have any attachment to them anymore. I do hope AI does replace them, as harsh as that sounds, because I feel they'll serve them right for the way they've acted towards me and everyone else. I don't know whether the series has changed, or I myself have changed as a person to a point where I no longer feel comfortable around Sonic and Amy Rose. I think I just answered my own question, which is both. All my online friends I made are still out there enjoying the series as it is, but are doing so without me, and I can only just sit there wishing I could celebrate with them. I don't know about you, but losing passion and falling out of love for something, as well as being sad in an environment where everyone is happy and doesn't understand your pains and struggles, is quite literally one of the shittiest feelings anyone could ever have. To be losing my passion for the Sonic series and falling out of love with Amy Rose is equivalent to losing a friend or loved one. You don't see them ever again, they either die or they leave without warning or saying goodbye, but for some reason they could come back. When they do, you try to get some closure from them, only to realize they're not the same people you once knew them. And you don't always get the closure you want. You get so angry and frustrated at them for years, to the point where all your cherishable memories get swept away and replaced by newer, negative, toxic memories. At that point, you would probably come to the conclusion that maybe they're just better off where they were, better off dead, because at least then you would still have cherishable memories of your loved ones back when they were still alive. I always want to ask why Amy's not who she used to be. Why does she have to change in order to please the people that never liked her? Why people like Lisa Ortiz, Kyoko Yoshimura, Shiro Maekawa, and all those people I loved that used to be part of the Sonic franchise in the past aren't working in the series anymore? Most of the time, you don't always get that closure you want in life. And even in some rare occasions when you do, it's not the outcome you wanted to hear. Everything just changes. I look at everybody saying how much they love this series and how much has changed their lives, and I always get envious of them, simply because of how I never had any Sonic fandom memories as positive as theirs. I do actually get angry at some points, because even though they're just enjoying something in their own space, it still feels like they're romanticizing a time where the series was really nothing but a painful, miserable experience for me. It just makes me jealous even more, and I wish I could be over there, join Sonic the same way they all are. Seeing and actually experiencing the backlash Sonic fans have gotten for liking the series during the 2010s, where the adventure games were starting to get retroactive backlash from people that never even cared for the series to begin with, and just want to get a few cheap clicks and ad revenue, I kinda imagine that Sonic fans will be a lot more sympathetic and understanding towards us Amy fans. The situation we're in right now is very similar to how adventure fans were experiencing throughout the 2010s, and how badly mistreated they were for still enjoying those decade-old games. Being an Amy fan in the 2020s feels exactly the same way, when everything we loved about pre-Ian Flynn Amy is now being unnecessarily shat on by complete outsiders and grifters that never even cared for her in the first place, and everyone including Sonic and other Amy fans were brainwashed into parroting the same hot garbage they've been spewing out to them, not letting them form their own opinions. I really mean it when I say that defending Amy Rose from the Sonic fanbase feels exactly the same as the Sonic fanbase defending the Sonic series from the entire gaming community and out-of-touch game journalists. I'll admit that in a couple times in the past, I too would get offended by someone shitting on the Sonic series, as after all, I was part of this crowd of being ridiculed for liking the series too. But then I soon remember all the things that Sonic fans did to me, and the shit they said and made about Amy, and I'm just like, you know what, I don't care anymore. You do you. I hope they do continue roasting this series, because that's how little I care for this fanbase and franchise now. The Sonic fanbase deserves all the hate they've gotten, and I feel extremely betrayed by them just by how much I defended them in the past, only for them to completely turn against me. It seems like the 2020s should have really been the decade to finally revitalize my love for Amy. She's been featured in more things now compared to the 2010s, and is arguably a much more prominent character than she ever was in the past, even being treated just ever so slightly more positively by the social media accounts. And that momentum is likely going to continue with Sonic Movie 4. I seem to have gotten everything I wanted, but for some reason I'm still not happy. Every single new Amy related thing that comes out these days always has something that holds it back, and it's so frustrating. While I'm happy that classic Amy's been brought back in the spotlight again with Sonic Superstars and Origins after being left out in Mania, I still preferred how she played in Advance 1 as opposed to being yet another Sonic clone. Same thing with Frontiers. A part of me wants to be happy that Amy is playable again in 3D for the first time in 15 years, but the gameplay style they gave her is something I'm not fond of, nor find it all that exciting, given the implications I get from it. I'm just tired of having to grasp at straws to like about current day Amy. It seems like Amy becomes more and more sanitized and devoid of any life and soul with every new subsequent appearance, and I'm just forced to watch something I love being turned to shit, particularly by this side of the globe. The Japanese side, at the very least, still seems to stay consistent with Amy's characterization from what I've seen and heard, but even still, it should not be up to me to change into a language that's not my own to get my definitive Sonic fix, especially when the US-Japan divide didn't used to be as egregious back then as it is now. It should be their job to be on par and consistent with one another. And even in some cases, such as with Frontiers and the Generations rewrite, the Japanese side seems to have made a couple sacrifices to bend over to the West, which I'm not happy with either. So not even the Japanese side of the series is enough to completely win me over these days. I just feel really conflicted by it all. Like, I should be happy and grateful that Amy's still getting used a lot and isn't been thrown away to the side, but at the same time, if she doesn't even feel like herself, then does it make any difference? Even though I spent the vast majority of this video complaining about the lack of appreciation and attention given to Amy, is it really all that surprising? Amy debuted at a time where female characters in gaming were still in their infancy stage, and out of all the main characters that have eventually gotten a game centered around them, Amy has never been the main character, nor has had a game that solely focused on her. She's been in a lot of games, sure, far more than the vast majority of the main Sonic cast, but she's never been written in a way where taking her out of the story greatly affects the plot. All of this really just makes me wish that, man, when is Amy really gonna get her chance to shine? I'll admit that the fanbase itself has kinda gaslighted me in the past into believing that maybe Amy just didn't belong in this series, that she was in the wrong franchise. I thought that she should be in her own franchise where she could just be herself without anyone judging her. For years I've always wanted Amy to have her own big game centered around her, where she's the main character and the main star of her own show. But given how the last non-Sonic character spin-off panned out, it's incredibly unlikely that will ever come to fruition. And I certainly don't want anything to do with it if Ian Flynn or any other Western writer is under the pen, because I know it's probably going to be the same tired shit that's been released for the past several years now. And the constant gatekeeping and gaslighting from Sonic fans and believing that she was never really all that important to begin with and doesn't deserve a second chance doesn't help make that dream come even close to true. Not one bit. Even today, I still firmly believe that Amy deserves a better franchise. One that would at least not neglect and ruin her to the ashes. I spent years wishing for Amy to finally make her debut in the movies, and while I end up getting what I wanted, the road to actually getting there was absolutely egregious and pretty disgusting by the amount of eggshell walking and gatekeeping involved. And even Amy's movie reveal itself is something I'm also very mixed on, as it seems like it's going in the same tomboy girl boss direction as seen in Frontiers. And even if she's not that, it's likely that she'll just be as overshadowed and sidelined anyway by the other character introduced, like she always was. Now that she's confirmed to be in the movies, this has led to more people giving their own input on how they want Amy to be. Even if they want to remove and change literally everything about Amy, like they've been doing for years. Considering how drastically different movie Sonic is to game Sonic, that theory seems more plausible by the very minute. But if she's not going to have an active role in the movie, she might as well have her own dedicated TV show spin-off in the Sonic Cinematic Universe, as what they call it nowadays. She won't even be present for 90% of it, but that's okay, because she'll at least be better than the few couple games where she was mischaracterized. Sonic Prime was something I actually had quite a lot of hype for. I was betting on my entire life for it to finally bring me back to the series. It came out at a time where I was still at my lowest point and was craving some kind of happiness. But I guess I was given a tremendous amount of false hope from the marketing down to the reveal of the voice actors. Because watching the premiere and hearing what was supposed to be Amy's new voice and personality just absolutely broke me. So much so to the point where I actually felt sick. I felt disgusted that this is how Amy is going to be portrayed, quite possibly until the end of time. I was even angrier than before, and you can surely tell that I absolutely made my anger known to the world. But perhaps that anger went towards the wrong people, and as a result, I lost a bunch of friends because of it. I initially thought Frontiers and Prime were really just 1 year of mediocrity, and things would eventually pick right back up, considering how close we were to Amy's 30th anniversary. But seeing her character bio change, as well as her censorship in the Generations rewrite, her live action cinematic debut reveal, and now with her interactions in Sonic Racing Crossworlds, were really all the final nail in the coffin for me. These turn of events were all the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm in disbelief that the real Amy, the Amy I know and loved ever since I was a kid going through a rough time in my life, is now gone, and is never coming back. I just wish that things were back to the way they used to be, where Amy was just this happy little girl that was full of life and loved Sonic, and nothing more or less than that. She was relatively a simple character in concept, and wasn't really all like the other characters, but that didn't matter to me. I always thought her empathetic and loving traits were needed to help balance and flesh out the overgrowing Sonic universe, populated by superheroes and weapons of mass destruction. She used to be a girl that would bring joy and happiness to my screen. She used to always wear her heart on her sleeve and leave an actual impact on the people around her and the fans watching her because of how memorable she was. The other reason why I even loved Amy to begin with was because I really saw a lot of myself in her. Not in the sense that I go around chasing after guys and stuff. Not at all. It's just every time I see Amy wanting to prove her worth to Sonic and everyone, only to get dismissed or even downright shat on by everyone else. It takes me back to when I was bullied in my real life and wanted to do my very best to achieve what I wanted to achieve and to prove the naysayers that have doubted me my whole life wrong. That sense of relatability has made me root for Amy for many years, hoping to get the justice she deserves, and hoping that one day she could win Sonic's heart, and which in some canons did actually come to fruition. But now, all of that is gone. Everything I loved about Amy is completely gone now. It may seem like I'm 100% blaming this fanbase for killing everything I loved about Amy Rose, but they aren't entirely the only group at fault here, because in reality, everyone's at fault. I blame Ian and the current writers for making this change and ever listening to this hive mind in the first place. I blame Sega and Sonic Team for encouraging said change, as well as encouraging people to defend and dick ride the series at no cost. And it just hurts me to say this, but I also blame Sega of Japan for ever giving the keys to the franchise to the West, because even when they're driving the car themselves, they've proven time and time again that they too can crash head on when they aren't paying attention to what's in front of them. The reason why I'm mostly blaming the fanbase here is for something that may seem unheard of. I've wrapped my head around this for quite a long time now, where I finally came up with the only possible conclusion I could think of, and it's the fact that this series nowadays is basically built around the fandom. It's shaped in a way where the series itself is practically encouraging this fan behavior. You can see this with the way Ian Flynn and the IDW writers interact with the fanbase, the entire existence of the Twitter takeovers, how the social media accounts present themselves and interact with the fandom at large. The constant meme and meta referencing, it's all relative. It seems like the writers and the people running the social media accounts care way more about getting likes and retweets than actually telling an engaging story featuring our favourite characters. The fandom seems to care way more about the fandom side of the series rather than the actual series itself. All the crossovers, promos, and brand deals are something that feels way more like a blatant attempt by Sega to hone in on this whole thing being a franchise and to maintain whatever relevancy the series still has now, as well as getting all the diehards salivate over the fact that they love this brand. I just feel so alienated, because this sort of mentality didn't really exist for me back then. I feel like it should be common knowledge that the fandom should be warped around the franchise itself, not the other way around. It makes no sense. When you get something that has the franchise warped by the fandom, it all just becomes a fan-servicey, nostalgia-filled mess of a franchise. I see all these like new wave of Sonic tubers just gassing the series up. I just couldn't get myself to care for them. I just feel like they just all just come out of nowhere, and I just want nothing to do with them. Judging from all my complaining and crapping on the series in general, one might assume that I was never really all that much of a Sonic fan myself. But that couldn't be any further from the truth. There was a time where I used to unconditionally love Sonic. I was ride or die with him, as I always preferred Sonic over Mario, as Sonic has always been the cooler character to me. I had a friend that was even bigger of a Sonic fan than I ever was, and has been one way longer than I have. He was the one that introduced me to the series in the first place, and I used to happily play some of the old games back in the day, not caring about the actual quality of those games, and my friend even lent me some of his games for me to play with. We both loved talking about Sonic, and that sort of passion my old friend used to have as tweens sparked an interest I would have with Sonic that I didn't realize back then. Truth be told, everything was a lot brighter for me back then, and we were both a lot happier back then too. But those days are long gone, and they're never coming back. And it's not like I even want those days to come back either. As who I was 15 years ago is not the same person I am today. A lot of things have changed since then, and now my glory days of playing Sonic games on my PS2 as a kid are nothing more than a distant memory. That old friend that got me into Sonic, we aren't even close anymore, and haven't been for such a long time. And I can surely tell you that both me and him have seen brighter days. Heck, I don't think he even likes Sonic anymore, come to think of it. Or at least not as much as he used to. We all want to pretend we're 10 years old again, playing these games in our childhood bedrooms. But time doesn't work that way. Time moves forwards, not backwards. To put things into perspective, one of my other favourite video game series is Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet's characterization in the first game was that he was pretty much a dick, overly brash and aggressive towards Clank, which has gotten a lot of criticisms, much like Amy. But he does end up getting his heroic act together by the third act, and with the power of teamwork, he ends up saving his planet and the galaxy, and the two officially became lifelong friends ever since. Insomniac saw the criticisms towards Ratchet's character and decided that there needs to be some form of course correction done going forward. For the rest of the original trilogy on the PS2, Ratchet's aggression and brash demeanor was drastically taken down a peg, which also made sense to his character development and his change in voice actor, and his character since then has been well received by fans and critics. However, as the series went on, People have started to notice how bland, watered down, overly kiddie and generic Ratchet's character and the series has become over time. So much so to where this 2016 PS4 remake didn't even try to retell his origin story, and just had Ratchet become buddy-buddy with Clank immediately. There have been discourse surrounding Ratchet's change in characterization since the PS4 remake, with the culmination of such being this one popular hour-long video essay produced by the Gaming Brit Show, where he dissects and compares the remake to the original, highlighting how much of the original game's vision was lost in translation, and how much the reboot failed to capture the edge and heartfelt tone of the story and characters the original game had. That is exactly how I feel about Amy nowadays. She has lost all of her edge, all of her energy, all of her love and personality wiped away. What is left now is a clean, safe, corporate, shiny toy that smiles and chuckles ever so often, but does nothing more than that. She is designed nowadays to be as inoffensive and homogenized as possible, and as a result, her character has suffered tremendously. She went from a go-getter girl with a huge childlike crush that was adorable and fun to watch, to a no-getter with no emotion and the most boring and uninspired interactions and dialogue imaginable. When I see Amy's interactions in Sonic Crossworlds, I get nothing other than a blatant reminder by the writers that they are free from trying, free from doing anything. It's as if they've fully caved into this mentality, and rather than fighting against it, they retreated. It's more of a reminder to me that just because someone is smiling doesn't mean they're happy. She is present for the most part, but isn't really active or mattering. It hurts my soul so much. If anything, they seem to have taken the easy way out, a huge shortcut. Instead of developing Amy's relationship with Sonic in a way that feels natural and meaningful, they decided that the best course of action was to literally remove her crush and her love for Sonic entirely. Amy didn't start off much in the early days, just being a girl that had a huge crush on the main hero. It wasn't until the series made its splash to the third dimension where Amy really did start to shine, and with every subsequent game her relationship with Sonic became stronger and closer. Her journey wasn't completely flawless, I made that pretty clear throughout this entire series, but even still, from her inception all the way up to 2011, I always loved seeing her grow and evolve over the years, bumps and all. That growth for Amy that people always harp on about these days had always been there prior to Sega of America's reign in the series. It doesn't get appreciated enough by the Sonic fanbase. It used to be a fun, loving journey between our two favourite hedgehogs, but nowadays it's all about the destination, the moments, the teasers, anything that could give people a small dopamine rush. It seems like after generations, Sega just decided to double down on this idea that Amy should just be a girl character that occasionally throws some subtle hints that she actually likes Sonic, with no sense of direction or cohesion for all these hints and teasers thrown around. Even though this new Amy claims to like Sonic, liking something isn't the same thing as love. Seeing their relationship being warped into a platonic friendship just breaks my heart. People have already made up their mind on who they want Amy to be. Ian has already chosen his audience, and it's clearly not me. People don't want a cute, warm, bubbly, happy-go-lucky girl that wears her heart on her sleeve and has an edgy and aggressive side to her. No, they just want yet another cold, stoic, emotionless girl boss to fill the roster of many other girl bosses in the series. Nobody wants a sense of individuality in the series anymore, where everyone can just be unique and cool in their own ways. They just want the same fucking shit regurgitated back at them and expect to get seconds or even thirds. No matter how many times people have tried to cater to the naysayers by writing Amy to their favour, she'll always and will forever be known as that annoying, useless little girl in a boys franchise revolving around superheroes and villains. No matter how many people I surround myself with, I'll always be a loner and an outcast in a fandom that's already shunned as outsiders by the gaming community at large. Even though Amy did help me get through some of the darkest days of my life, I know for sure that if I continue to latch onto her as some kind of shield, I'm gonna stay stuck there. Which begs the question if I'm even an Amy fan anymore. especially when I feel that character I've grown attached to doesn't even exist anymore, which absolutely scares me, but maybe that's not all too surprising. For years I've been trying so desperately hard to make the Sonic series work for me, trying to fit in, forcing myself into the series, all in a while being happy with everyone else. But it seems like every single time I do, my hate, anger, and isolation of the Sonic fanbase have gotten worse and worse. And every time I try to let go of Sonic altogether, I just couldn't. No matter how hard I tried, it always seemed to come back to haunt me. I figured if I just kept hanging on for that new game or show that could possibly bring me back to how happy I was a decade ago, I could finally be happy again. It just breaks my heart so much that I have to be this negative and toxic towards Amy. Because I feel like if she was real, she would be really upset with me and possibly be crying for acting in a way that would give all of her haters and detractors more fuel and ammunition. But this is just really how I feel. I'm just so tired of seeing Amy being misrepresented and treated as a joke. Tired of seeing people spreading misinformation about her. Tired of seeing Amy being neglected. I'm just so tired of always living in the past. It's obvious that I'm not getting any happier. Every new game, show, or thing that comes out nowadays, I react more negatively towards. I don't even remember the last time where I was truly happy with this series, or even expressed something I remotely liked. I feel like some crusty old boomer telling the kids to get off my lawn. And it's weird that I'm not even like this with other fandoms, or in my real life. I'm the complete opposite actually. I usually hate it when people complain about everything, and I've certainly been in many other toxic fandoms since. But for some reason, those fandoms never pissed me off in the same way the Sonic fanbase did. Maybe it's because the Sonic fandom was literally the first ever fandom I ever had the misprivilege of being in, and nothing has come close since. As mad as I was the whole video, I'm just very much sad and heartbroken by the direction Amy is going now. I just wish things turned out differently, but considering the momentum the series is going, I don't see that ever changing anytime soon. It just feels like this is the point where I need to jump and abandon ship, and it still hurts to realize it took this long for that day to come. A part of me still wants to believe there's somebody out there who would reboot the series and start fresh, eventually bringing Amy back to her glory days once again. Back before today's political climate have completely taken over everything. But until that day comes, she is no longer Amy Rose to me. She is simply a completely new, different character, wearing Amy's skin, cosplaying as her. The real Amy Rose is dead to me, and has been dead for well over a decade now. A girl that will forever be lost in time. She has been brutally murdered and killed by her fans, her haters, by the writers, and even by the very company that created her. And that's why her journey throughout the 2010s to the present day and the foreseeable future has been nothing but a turbulent, heartbreaking waste. This whole entire experience has left me completely heartbroken. So I guess this is it. The end of the road. I really wish it didn't have to end this way, but I guess things just aren't meant to be. Even contemplating making this series, I knew for sure that I was never going to end in a normal way. I knew that I just couldn't ignore everything that happened to me, and I was going to just go full on angry boomer mode, screaming about the good old days. And the funny thing is, I'm not even old. Not even close to old. I was even the same age as these kids not too long ago. But that just goes to show how much Amy and society as a whole have changed for the worse, and how much people like me are completely outnumbered. It may seem like I'm ending this series on such a sour note, which I am, but that isn't entirely the case at all, because I'm also happy that the series is finally over. As you may come to believe, this series was extremely hard for me to make. This is quite literally my first attempt in creating a long form video essay format like this, and many hours and months were spent making each video, sacrificing my mental health in the process. And frankly, I don't think I'll ever make a video this long and scripted ever again. I initially wanted to do this series much earlier, as in pre-Frontiers levels of early, back when Forces and Pontac were the main subject of Sonic discourse. But I was never able to pull it off at the time, as I didn't have the resources and the means of creating it. Even when I finally managed to get my hands on an actual PC and headset, my lack of confidence, fandom burnout, and sheer laziness held me back for the longest time. Of course, I still wish I could have finished the series much earlier. At first, I wanted to get this whole series done before movie 3 came out, but that didn't happen. Then I shifted my goalpost towards the end of 2024, but that also didn't happen. So then it was before I went on my vacation, but again, I just kept on procrastinating and holding the series back for the longest time, simply because I thought no one would care. There were a lot of times where I hesitated to even complete this series, because I thought, well, what's the point? What's the point of continuing on if all this franchise has done is given me so much pain and misery? And nobody seems to care what I have to say anyway, given the overall quality of my content. I was always holding it back further and further because I was so burnt out by all the drama, all the negativity, and I felt like I'd be contributing to that said negativity by posting this very video. It literally took me over a year to finally put this series to an end, and almost a whole year in itself to finally bring in the courage needed to finish this video. But I'm glad it's finally over. I did take that first step after all, so it was more important that I finish what I started. And honestly, I couldn't think of the right time to make this topic known. As much as I'm doing this series for other people to see, I'm also doing this for myself too. In my darkest and depressing years of my life, I didn't think I would ever see the light at the end of the tunnel. I really thought my life would really be over by the time I graduated high school. The fact that I managed to pull through at the end of the day and my life did not end at that dark moment in time is honestly something I still give so much credit to, even today. The past several years or so have been a huge roller coaster for me, of things just happening and falling out of. If I went back in time and told my 14-year-old self that fun series about a blue hedgehog that runs really fast I grew up playing, well, you're gonna rediscover those games and keep on playing that series. It's not dead. And that pink hedgehog you remember so vaguely from a couple of games, she's actually going to be a huge part in playing that series again. And even just a huge part of your livelihood in general. That new look for her is actually the same character, and she has a lot more going on for her. But get this, it's all gonna come at a massive cost. It's all gonna be a downward spiral of hate, regret, suffering, and pain up ahead for years to come. I'll admit, my younger self would probably be like, no thanks, I'm good, and just stuck to whatever other games and media I was obsessed with at the time. Even to this day, I still wondered what things would have been like had I not rediscovered this series and delved deep into the fandom. How different of a person I would have been had I not been sucked into the depths of online discourse. I probably would have been a much more joyful person. But the more I think about it, the truth of the matter is, I probably still would have had these feelings on current day Amy, even without the fanbase looming over my judgment. But that doesn't matter now, because all that trauma, anger, and pain is now all in the past, and all that hate built up inside of me, I can finally let it all go. Even in this series alone, I've learned and reminded myself of a few things. I learned how to write a script, how to record something as simple as my own voice, and how to edit videos. I cherished, laughed, vented, and even shed a tear reliving some memories I had with Amy Rose and the Sonic series in general. This video in particular was the hardest one for me to make, for obvious reasons. Not just because of how long it took to make, but also because going back in time to find some of the toxic material and individuals I encountered in my past really brought back a lot of bad memories. But even though that journey was painful, I still felt like it was necessary to take a step back in order to move forward, and to also give closure to this dreaded era of my life. Closing a chapter in my life that has lasted for well almost a decade now. Part of my motivation into starting this whole thing with Amy was the rise of Sonic character discussions and studies on YouTube since the late 2010s, especially during the time between Forces and Frontiers, where so many YouTubers have come forward to express distaste and disappointment towards how the main Sonic cast have been heavily mistreated, including Amy. While there have been a few people that have made video essays on Amy that I liked and agreed with, a lot of these essays I've seen completely miss the point of Amy's character entirely, and are just going off of what the general Western audience expects in a female character. And even some of the video essays I like barely scratch the surface as to why Amy has changed. Why Amy became overly simplified and watered down over time, and why she was even created to be who she used to be in the first place. I'll admit that I have actually attempted to make essays and rants similar to this one a couple of times before, but they're all in the form of 100 Twitter threads that are since long gone. While it does make me happy seeing a long, passionate, detailed study on Amy on Twitter, particularly from some of my online friends, I know that deep down those Twitter threads will most likely fade away and disappear from my and everyone else's memories in only a matter of days, much like the ones I made in the past. I want to make this series in video form so that people can look back at it time and time again, just to understand and see how Amy used to be great. It's no wonder why so many younger or even newer fans of the series don't even acknowledge what Amy used to be in the past. Because of how much and how long these characters have all been mischaracterized, it's no surprise that people don't even remember what Amy used to be like 10 or even 20 years ago, let alone have even played any of those old games from the 90s and 2000s. And that's really my main drive into making this series. In a world where Amy has gotten a lot of pushback and retroactive backlash, I thought I would take the time out of my day to remind everyone why Amy was beloved and cherished by so many people before the dark times, before everyone have all lost their minds. But judging from the rate of where the Sonic series is going, I feel like all my efforts were a little too late. If you've reached this far into this video and have seen my other videos in this series, you may have articulated one conclusion in your mind, which is the fact that I sure do love this pink pocket of sunshine. It's what I've always wanted to share with people. It's human nature that people want to share what they like and explain why they love that thing to everyone else and how much it means to them. It's just sad, however, that my love for Amy doesn't feel the same way when the thing I always wanted to share has been supplanted and replaced by something of inferior quality, let alone ridiculed by the greater community at large. Even though I've complained so much about the modern Amy of today, that new shiny toy could very well be that special thing to someone close to their hearts, much like how close Amy was to mine. And as much as I hate the thought of that new character being the definitive Amy for people, there's sadly nothing I can do about it to stop it from happening. But at the end of the day, I'm still gonna stick up for my girl. I'm the type to always take a stand for something I believe in and what I find commendable, and Amy is no exception, and I will always wish for the very best for her. I want to give Amy the review, analysis and respect she deserves, in which even despite all the vitriol, all that anger, all that rage, I still hope that I achieved that goal for somebody out there. I wanted to tackle the series in the best way I ever could, personally. It may not be in the same professional manner other people would have done, and I may not have a whole lot, but I still hope this series was at least enjoyable and a fulfilling watch for someone out there. The Amy I love may be dead and gone, but she certainly won't be forgotten, and I'll always remember her for being that sweet, joyful bundle of energy and a shining beacon of light and hope during a dark and difficult time in my life. Even though she may appear crazy at times, there's still something quite charming about Amy Rose and her love for Sonic. Amy Rose is amazing. Or at least, she was.